There is a little craft thrift shop about 15 minutes away from where I live. It has everything I could ever dream of. The shop takes in any fabric or yarn, and it's all by donation, and it all is of great price and great materials. And they even have like scrapbooking things and sewing patterns. One of my favorite things to look at when I'm there are the books. I try to find different vintage. One that I recently picked up is this Better Homes and Gardens applique book. The thing that stood out to me with this book is actually this project on the front. They took the flowers from fabric, followed what inspiration they got from these flowers that were printed on the fabric. I have quite a lot of scraps in my stash right now. I think I can try and make something similar to this. It actually reminds me of a few artists that I really, really love. One who takes a fabric, puts it on a canvas, and then paints and uses the pattern of the fabric throughout the whole painting. And it's really beautiful. And then another one that does what she calls slow stitching, but really it's applique, just done very slow and in an intentional way and in a very artistic way. I'm going to try my hand at this and see if I can make something similar with my scraps that I have. If you love historic, vintage, modern crafting and sewing, then why not hit the like button and subscribe to my channel? Here are the scraps that I gathered. I'm going to try and figure out a way to put these together. So there are sort of very bright, light blues and oranges and yellows and pinks, or some more muted colors here. I can't quite decide if that will go better with these brighter colors or with these darker ones. I'm probably leaning towards this one. I think what I need to do is read the actual instructions. Maybe I'll start there. So the instructions have kind of a grid that you can follow. However, I don't have these exact fabric, like blue and white floral print for the sky, green and white floral print for the ground, print fabric for the backing and border, some muslin for the house, and then scraps of floral prints with motifs that are 3/4 inch to 1 inch in diameter for shrubs and flowers. I don't have that much, and I don't have enough that I would be able to make something that's this big. So this one is actually 18 by 20 inches. I am not going to make something that big. I'm going to start smaller, but follow this kind of theme of just doing applique and some embroidery to create the wall hanging. And it says to use quilt batting, which I don't have. I don't like working with batting. I'm not a quilter. It's not my thing. So I tend to do, I call it more patchwork than quilting when I do things like this. And you can applique without batting. I do have some felt fabric in all different colors. This whole thing is going to be a figure it out as I go. Really, the important instructions are to do the seam allowance for the ground fabric and the sky fabric, and you top stitch those together. They say that they did satin stitches for the evergreen trees. Monarch butterfly is just embroidered, and each flower had some seam allowance. So they actually appliqued all of these little flowers. It's not just embroidered. Maybe these little ones are. I bet those tiny little ones are embroidered. All of these have seam allowance folded under, and they're all appliqued. So we'll see if I survive that kind of tedious work, because knowing me, I tend to avoid tedious needlework. So I will get to cutting out some of my flowers and piecing them together and see what I come up with before I start sewing. I started by cutting out the main floral pieces. I decided to do this first so I could plan out the whole size of the piece. I settled on the darker blue floral pattern for the sky, the light green leafy pattern for the background, and the darker green for the foreground. I decided that instead of a wall hanging, I wanted this piece to be framed, and I had a frame already that would work. I opened the frame up, goodbye boy and cat, then traced the size of the frame. I sewed all those pieces into place, including the house base. Next, I cut out the flowers, making sure, or at least trying to leave some seam allowance. The fabric I had may not have been the best for this because the flowers overlapped quite a lot. I knew the shape would be tricky to fold and applique, but because this was a scrap project, I was really dedicated to using what I had, and I gave myself some grace because it was my first project using these techniques, and I did need to give myself myself a lot of grace, especially with the filming part. I prefer to embroider like this, with the fabric 3 inches from my face and a bright light shining directly where I'm working. And then, not to mention the maneuvering I had to do to get the piece folded in the right spot, held there, and the thread in the right spot. It just was not great for filming, so I hope that you get the gist. Anyway, some of the pieces I cut were definitely too small to applique, especially the ones I had planned to put on the lighter green. So I changed my plan a little bit and just moved on to the embroidery and decided that I would see how the embroidery went and how I liked how everything was laid out. And for the embroidery, I mostly used French knots in some different colors to create more flowers. And then I added a lot of bushes on the horizon. Ultimately, I decided to leave the lighter green area blank, totally not because I lost steam with the tiny applique flowers, and the negative space feels right with the frame border. So I am dressed and ready for a yard sale. I wanted to jump in quickly to show how this turned out. I really love how it looks. I love how it turned out with the frame and everything. I think it looks really nice for being my first applique project. And even though I did not have as many flowers as I initially set out to have, I still am proud of this and I'm still going to display it in my home. Really, I'm excited to do more things like this with the applique and the embroidered details and different colored fabrics, even if it's just more tiny little houses with flowers. Really enjoyed this project. And so, as I always say at the end of my videos, I have a lot more ideas coming up for things to make, things to do, things to try. And so if you like embroidery, if you like sewing or any kind of needlework, then subscribe. I am going to go and find a great place to put this in my home. And until next time, happy crafting.